Hey, howdy, hey, what is going on, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls? Welcome back to another Toad video. Now, before we get anywhere in this video, does the audio sound a little bit different? Let me know down in the comments if the audio sounds any different to my previous videos because, well, yeah, my dog broke my mic, unfortunately. It really sucks, but I still have my camera and my camera microphone, so hopefully the audio is not too bad. I'm working on getting a new mic and all that, so just bear with me. With all that being said, based off the title and thumbnail of this video, we are going to be doing a Sonoran desert toad care video. Now, Sonoran desert toads are a really unique species. They're really incredible toads, and I haven't done a lot of care videos, so I figured it's been a while, we might as well do a nice little care video. Now, our two Sonoran desert toads are named Sherman and Hummer. The one right there with the half-blind eye is Sherman, and then the one behind her is Hummer. They are both females, and I love these guys. I've had them for about 3.5 years, and they are super duper awesome toads. Now, as I was saying, I absolutely love these species of toads. They're so unique, so fun, and just so interesting. Now, with this specific species of toad, you have tons and tons and tons of options housing-wise. And basically what I mean by that is you don't have to just house them in one single enclosure. You can house multiple together, and there are so many different options when it comes to housing your toad. Now, me personally, I keep my Sonoran desert toads in a 20-gallon long enclosure. It's just what works best for me, but you can also house them in many different kinds of enclosures. For example, an Exoterra lowboy works really well for Sonoran desert toads. Another thing that I've seen people house their Sonoran desert toads is in tubs and whatnot, like the big old plastic Sterilite tubs. That works pretty well. But there are a few struggles when it comes to lighting. For example, you can't really put your heat lamp on the plastic lid because you don't want to burn your house down. So you really have to kind of improvise if you were to use a plastic tub. But you can really see how I have my two Sonoran desert toads housed here. Just a regular 20-gallon long enclosure with the screened lid. And it works really well for these little adorable toads. But I'm bout it. If you bout it, don't give a fuck. Now, personally, with the experiences that I've had with Sonoran desert toads, they like it around room temperature on one side and about 80 to 85 degrees on the other. So as you can see, I have an LED bulb and a heat bulb. I have these two bulbs on these toads. The LED is just for lighting, and then the heat is just for heat, of course, just to warm up the enclosure a little bit more. As you can see, they're both on opposite sides. The reason is because they just switch. They go back and forth based off of whether or not they want to get warmer or they want to stay cooler. That's pretty much all that there is to it. Just have about one side at around 80 to 85 and your cool side about 70 to 75. One thing to note about this specific species here is they're a very hardy species of toad. They're not going to just die if they're 1 degree off like certain animals. They're really hardy amphibians. That's one of the reasons I absolutely love them. Now, another thing I'd recommend getting if you're unexperienced and you're new to keeping frogs and toads and whatnot is the thermometer and hydrometer. Basically, all that's going to do is just tell you the humidity and the temperature of your enclosure. But if you're not very experienced with keeping reptiles or amphibians, it's pretty important to have, just so you know that you're not freezing or baking your animal. Now, these are the bulbs that I'll usually use for heat. Now, I primarily use the daylight bulbs, but you can also use these just in a lower wattage. Don't ever put 100 watt, that's way too hot, especially in a 20-gallon enclosure. But I usually use a 40 or 60 watt daylight bulb, and it keeps the temperature in the Sonoran desert toad's enclosure just perfect. I really like these bulbs. The only downside is they go out about every month, so you're constantly having to replace this bulb, but at the same time, it keeps the temperature right where it needs to be. I'll see you later. Now we're going to talk a little bit about decor and plants and whatnot for your Sonoran desert toads. They're not a super needy animal when it comes to decor and whatnot, but adding decor and wood and pieces like that for enrichment is very beneficial. So when it comes to decor, you've got a lot of options. I really like these fake plants by ZoomEd and Exoterra and whatnot. These really work. And if you look closely, you can see I have one up there, and it adds just for a little bit of decor, a little bit of a better hiding spot for our toads down there. I also really like having backgrounds in my enclosures. It's good for the toads, but it's also good for just the physical look and appeal. But you can see I have all these little fake plants, some pieces of wood, some more plants, things like that. Just simple things for decor and for, helping your animal have a good place to hide. One thing I'd like to note is the more plants you can add into the enclosure, the more wood you can add, the more material you can add, the better.
Come with if you with it, and this game that we're playing, you want me but won't say it. If I told you I'm leaving, you would be so devastated.
Now, while we're on the topic of decor, we're going to talk a little bit about hides. Now, just know that hides are one of the most important things for really any reptile or amphibian species, and especially Sonoran desert toads. Now, with hides, you've really got a lot of options. You don't have to have any set specific kind of hide, but I really like using cork and wood hides, but you can also use plastic and ceramic hides as well. It just depends on your personal preference. Just give them at least one, the more the merrier, but at least one good hiding spot. So like currently, as you can see here, I've got a couple different hiding options. They can hide under that plant, in the cork, under the ledges there. They can just burrow under the water bowl. That's one really good thing about Sonoran desert toads, is being that they're a burrowing species. They can also create their own hides by burrowing into their substrate.
I could be your next. I could be the one to relieve your stress when we talk about sex. She unzip that dress. Bless. Maybe one day
Now we are going to talk about another very important subject for keeping Sonoran desert toads and really any animal. That's going to be water. Water is so important. Obviously, water is the key to life. You have to have water if you want to keep your Sonoran desert toads alive. And with mine, in my experience, love lots of water. Now, these toads are found in places that there are typically a lot of streams and a lot of body of waters that they can sit and bathe in. So that's one very important thing to think about. Now, with water, you don't ever want to use any regular old tap water from your sink. It can actually be very harmful for your Sonoran desert toads. Now, what I personally do is I'll turn my sink on, fill up a gallon of water, and add ReptiSafe. Now, ReptiSafe is super duper important. It's really the most important thing when it comes to giving your toads water. I basically add ReptiSafe. It's a water treatment. It instantly dechlorinates the water, making it safe for your reptiles and amphibians. Now, all I really do is just add a couple of drops of the ReptiSafe into the gallon of water. Now, you can use other water treatments that are meant for other fish and aquariums. That works perfectly fine as well. I just personally use ReptiSafe. Next, while we're on the discussion of water, you really have a couple of options. The bigger the water bowl that you can fit appropriately in your enclosure, the better. Now, I really like these ReptiRock bowls. It's good size, so it can really accommodate your toads really well. It's not going to shatter like a ceramic bowl would. They're reasonably cheap and well priced. I really like these ReptiRock bowls. Another bowl I'll use are these big old croc dog bowls. I really like these as well. Now, these will break, but they are also really cheap. I think I paid like $10 for this, and it's a giant bowl, as you can see, and it gives them plenty of space to swim around in. Matter of fact, that's the same kind of bowl I keep in Gucci's cage, it's just bigger. The most important thing, really, not to overthink anything, is just have enough space for your toads to soak and stay soaked, and then of course clean their water bowls out about once every 2 days or so. Now let's talk a little bit about bedding. Now, with bedding, if you're getting started, I personally recommend EcoEarth. EcoEarth is super good stuff. Once again, another product by ZoomEd, but you can also use other materials. For example, what I have in their enclosure right now is a mixture of leaf litter, ReptiBark, EcoEarth, and Jungle Mix. Honestly, that is the best mixture you can make for your Sonoran desert toads. It keeps humidity really well, and overall, it's just super good for your animals. Now, with Sonoran desert toads, you want to give them a good substrate that they can burrow in. So I would definitely not recommend using sand or rocks or paper towels or anything like that. The more space you can give them to burrow, which I would typically recommend about 3 to 4 inches, the more space, the better. Another thing is spray the enclosure and your substrate about once every 2 days or so, just to maintain a good level of humidity, but not too much humidity. As you can see, I recently sprayed them so their substrate has soaked up all that water, and then it'll be dried out probably by tomorrow. Yeah, just about 3 to 4 inches deep of substrate, and I typically use EcoEarth or Jungle Mix and things like that. Next, let's talk a little bit about feeding. Now when it comes to food, you've really got a lot of options. I typically will feed my Sonoran desert toads doobie roaches or crickets, but you can also feed them things like mealworms and superworms. All you're going to kind of do to feed them is just give them a cricket that'll fit the width of their mouth. If it'll fit the width of their mouth, then you're fine. You can also give them pinky mice and other small rodents and whatnot. With Sonoran desert toads, your feeding options are really almost limitless. Sonoran desert toads are not picky eaters, and they're extremely fun to watch eat because they will chase their food to the ends of the earth. So food options are going to be pinky mice, crickets, roaches, worms, lots of options as you can see. Definitely some high protein insects, or even of course pinky mice. Now about 2 to 3 times a week when I feed them, I will dust their insects or whatever it may be with a calcium or vitamin supplement of some sort. I typically like Zilla's calcium spray, or for example Zoomed's calcium powder, or even Zoomed's Reptivite. Just make sure that you give them a very, very good supplement of calciums whenever you feed them, just so that their bones and skin and all that will develop properly. Next, we're going to talk a little bit about where on earth do you find these toads here. Now, I personally got my Sonoran desert toad at Econ Reptile Expo, but you can find them at many, many other expos and shows, and even some pet stores. Now, I personally got mine from Repticon. You can also find them at other reptile expos, but they're decently hard to come by. You're not going to see them every single time. Every once in a while, if you're lucky, you'll find them at a pet store and whatnot, but it's super, super duper rare. So you really got to be on the lookout if you really, really want one. The 2 best places I would recommend trying to get some are going to be either online at a designated reptile website, or at a reptile expo. One thing is never, ever, ever get these guys from the wild. If they're in the wild, they're in the wild for a reason. Leave them where they're at, and only get them if you find them at a show or online or even at a store. And hey, if you can find them captive bred, definitely get them, because they're really, really hard to find captive bred. But other than that, just do not take them from the wild, guys. Leave them where they're at. Now, these toads can be found in a number of different states in the United States. They can be found in New Mexico, Colorado, and even California. And there are a number of other states that you may be able to find these toads as well. Honestly though, these guys are so awesome, and they're one of my favorite animals, my favorite 2 animals in the reptile room. I get so many of you guys constantly asking me, do I smoke their poison? You may be wondering, what? Smoke their poison? Yes, you heard me correctly. Now, these toads here have a toxin inside of their parotid glands, which are 2 bumps on each side of their shoulders that basically hold their poison. This toxin is called DMT. Now, DMT is a widely sought after hallucinogen for many reasons, and a lot of the reasons I don't even know why, but people are always asking me if I sell their DMT or if I smoke it or anything like that. And ladies and gentlemen, just know now, I don't do that, and I will not sell you any of my toads' poison. One little fun fact about their DMT is that the Native Americans that would find these toads hundreds upon hundreds of years ago would extract the poison and use them to basically see the gods. Now, for those of y'all who may not be understanding exactly what I'm saying, basically Native Americans and people nowadays will basically extract their poison to get high. There you have it, basic care on the Sonoran desert toads. As you can see, 2 females in a 20-gallon long enclosure, large water bowl, good warm area, good cool area, fake plants, background, good bedding, good hiding spot. That's pretty much all there is to it. You don't need to overthink it. Just know these are some of my favorite species of toads in the world. With all that being said, ladies and gentlemen, make sure to go follow my Instagram down in the description, TheRealPirateToadYT. Trust me, you won't miss out, and you'll get to see these toads in a lot of different posts, because obviously, as I've been saying, they're some of my favorite animals. Next, make sure to like the video. Let me know if I did alright and if you enjoyed this video. And lastly, most importantly of all, we are on the road to 3,000 subscribers, so go ahead, subscribe, it's free, and trust me, you won't regret it. Peace!
See, I don't know you at all, but I'm bout it. If you bout it, don't give a fuck, 'cause I'm bout it. If you bout it.